You're not gonna believe what my buddy Charlie went through back in New Orleans. He's the last guy you'd expect to get mixed up with something paranormal. Works as a mechanic, cracks bad jokes, drinks Bud Light like it's water. But when he told me about the summer he crossed paths with the Axeman legend, I got goosebumps that didn't quit. This isn't some History Channel rerun about a killer from 1919. It's personal, it's real, and it's messed up. Charlie swears something followed him home that year, and after hearing him tell it, I don't sleep easy when I visit NOLA anymore. Here's what he told me, and trust me, it'll stick with you. It was the summer of 2003 and Charlie was 17, living in a creaky shotgun house in the lower 9th Ward with his mom, Diane, and his kid sister, Lena, who was 12 going on trouble. New Orleans was a sauna back then, humidity so thick you could chew it, air buzzing with cicadas and the faint tang of swamp water. Their house was nothing special, peeling yellow paint, a sagging porch, and windows that rattled in the slightest breeze. Charlie was your typical teenager, skateboarding through potholed streets, sneaking smokes behind the corner store, dodging cops who didn't like his vibe. He wasn't into ghost stories, not like Lena, but he loved the city's gritty myths. Voodoo curses, pirate gold, and the Axeman, the boogeyman of 1918. Everybody in NOLA knew about the Axeman. He wasn't just a serial killer, he was a nightmare with a hatchet. Back in 1918 and 1919 he'd break into houses, sometimes smashing doors with his axe, and hack up whoever was inside. Italian grocers, old men, even a kid, no one was safe. He'd vanish before the cops could blink, leaving blood and questions. The papers called him a demon, especially after he sent letters taunting the city, claiming he wasn't human, just a shadow from hell. Charlie's grandpa used to spin Axeman yarns at family barbecues, his voice low over the crackle of grilling shrimp. "Lock your doors, boy," he'd say, winking. He's still out there waiting for the jazz to stop. Charlie figured it was just old man nonsense, something to scare kids into behaving. But he'd read enough in school to know the stories were real. Joseph Maggio and his wife, skulls split open in their bed. Louis Bessumer left bleeding next to his dead mistress. A pregnant woman bashed in the face. A toddler killed in her mom's arms. The guy was a monster, no doubt. What creeped Charlie out most was the Axeman's letter from March 1919. The killer wrote to the Times-Picayune, saying he'd strike again on March 19, 15 minutes past midnight, but he'd spare any house playing jazz. That night, New Orleans turned into a street party, brass bands on every corner, pianos pounding in bars, folks dancing till dawn. No one died. It was like the Axeman was playing a sick game, holding the city hostage with a song. Some locals even wrote back through the papers, daring him to show up. One guy offered to leave his windows open, polite as you please, just to see who'd win. By 2003 it was ancient history, a ghost story for tourists. Charlie didn't buy into it, not yet. That summer Lena got obsessed. She'd found a beat-up library book on New Orleans murders, dog-eared at the Axeman chapter. She'd read it to Charlie at night, her voice hushed, describing how the killer would slip through shadows, his axe gleaming under the moon. What if he never left? She'd ask, her eyes glinting. Charlie would scoff. Lena, he'd be older than dirt. Chill out. But she'd push, saying maybe he wasn't human, maybe he was a curse tied to the city's bones. She'd spin wild theories. He was a voodoo spirit, a demon pissed off by progress, or even a ghost who hated silence. Charlie thought she watched too many scary movies, but her words stuck, burrowing like splinters. One sticky evening in July, their mom was pulling a double shift at the hospital, leaving Charlie and Lena alone. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of jasmine and fried fish from a neighbor's kitchen. They were camped out on the living room couch, half watching a slasher flick on their grainy TV, the fan rattling in the corner. Lena, sprawled with her book, started up again. "You know tomorrow's the anniversary of an Axeman hit? August 5, 1918, he got that pregnant lady, Mrs. Schneider, right in the face." Charlie groaned, tossing a pillow at her. "Can you not? I'm trying to watch this." But Lena grinned, sensing a weak spot. "Bet you're too scared to visit one of his spots. Like the Romano house on Gravier Street, it's still there. Chicken?" Charlie wasn't scared, not exactly. More like irritated. Lena had this knack for goading him, and he hated losing to her. Fine, he snapped. I'll go. Happy? Her face lit up like she'd won the lottery. The next evening he grabbed his skateboard, a flashlight, and his mom's old pocket knife just in case. Lock the door, he told Lena, trying to sound like he meant business. Don't open it for nobody but me. She saluted, smirking, and he rolled out into the dusk, the sky bruising purple over the Mississippi. Graveyard Street was a half-hour ride, past flickering neon signs, jazz clubs spilling saxophone notes, and alleys that smelled of piss and magnolias. The Romano house was still standing, an old Creole cottage, its boards warped, its shutters hanging like broken teeth. Charlie parked his board, feeling like an idiot. What was he expecting? A glowing axe? A sign saying killer was here? He swept his flashlight over the porch, the beam catching spiderwebs and cracked glass. It didn't feel haunted, just forgotten, like the city had moved on and left it to rot. Then he heard it, a low, steady thud-thud-thud like someone splitting logs. It came from the backyard, faint but clear. His gut clenched, but he told himself it was nothing. Maybe a neighbor fixing a fence. Curiosity got the better of him, though, and he crept around the side, his sneakers crunching on gravel. The yard was a jungle of weeds, vines strangling a rusted swing set. At the far end stood a shed, its door sagging on one hinge. The thudding stopped, replaced by a slow creak, like something heavy shifting inside. Charlie's flashlight shook as he aimed it at the shed. "Anyone there?" he called, his voice thin. Silence except for the buzz of mosquitoes. He stepped closer, heart hammering, and peered through the gap. There against the wall was an axe, rusted, handle splintered, but unmistakable. It glinted in the beam like it was waiting for him. He stumbled back, tripping over a brick, and ran like hell. He didn't stop until he was halfway home, his shirt soaked, his breath ragged. The whole ride he felt it, eyes boring into his back, a shadow just out of reach. When he burst through the door, Lena was waiting, bouncing on her toes. "Well, see anything spooky?" He didn't mention the axe, couldn't find the words. Just muttered, "It was lame," and triple-checked the locks. Lena pouted but let it go, flipping on the TV to drown out the quiet. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The house felt off, like someone had turned the thermostat to wrong. Charlie lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, its blades slicing the dark. Around 2 a.m. he heard it, a soft tap-tap-tap on the front door. Not a knock, more like fingers brushing the wood, testing it. He held his breath, hoping it was a raccoon or a branch. Then it came again, sharper, followed by a slow, metallic scrape, like a blade dragging across the grain. His skin prickled. He grabbed the pocket knife, not much but better than nothing, and tiptoed to the living room, keeping to the shadows. The tapping stopped, but now there were footsteps, boots, heavy and slow, circling the house. They paused at the kitchen window, then Lena's room, then his. Each step was deliberate, like whatever it was knew he was listening. Lena's scream split the air. Charlie sprinted to her room, finding her huddled on the bed, her face ghost white. "There's someone outside," she whispered, pointing at the window. The curtains were open, framing a sliver of moonlight, but nothing moved. He yanked them shut, his hands shaking so bad he nearly tore the rod down. "Stay here," he said, though he had no clue what to do. He checked every lock, every window, the knife slick in his palm. The footsteps faded and the night went still, but he sat up till dawn, Lena curled against him, both of them too scared to speak. Morning brought rain, a gray drizzle that made the city feel like it was underwater. They checked the yard, no footprints, no scratches, nothing to prove it wasn't a dream. But Lena swore she'd seen a figure, tall, faceless, holding something that gleamed. Charlie didn't argue, he'd felt it too. He told their mom when she got home, leaving out the part about sneaking to Graveyard Street so she wouldn't flip. Diane sighed, blamed it on damn kids playing pranks, and promised to get better locks. Charlie nodded, but he knew it wasn't kids. He kept seeing that axe, kept hearing that scrape like it was burned into his brain. Things got weirder. A few nights later, Lena dragged him to the kitchen, her eyes huge. She'd printed an old article from the library, March 1919, the Axeman's letter. "He said he'd come back if the jazz stopped," she whispered. "What if you pissed him off by going there?" Charlie forced a laugh, but it came out hollow. He started noticing stuff. A cold patch in the hallway that made his breath fog. Shadows in the bathroom mirror, gone when he turned. The faint smell of rust in his room like old metal. One night, he woke to music. A brassy, mournful jazz tune, like a trumpet crying blocks away. He checked his radio, his phone. Nothing was playing. Lena heard it too, sitting up in her bed, clutching her pillow. "It's him," she said, barely audible. "He wants us to play." Charlie didn't believe in ghosts, not really, but he wasn't taking chances. He dug out his grandpa's saxophone from a dusty attic box, its case smelling of mildew. He hadn't touched it since middle school band, but he blew a few shaky notes, the sound wobbling through the house. The phantom music stopped. Maybe it was nothing, but his hands didn't stop trembling until morning. Lena started sleeping with a lamp on, saying she dreamed of a man with no eyes, an axe swinging in his hand. Charlie found marks on the back door, long, shallow scratches, too precise for a stray cat. He stopped skating near Gravier Street, but the feeling followed him. Eyes in the dark, a weight pressing on his chest like someone standing over his bed. He told me about it years later at a dive bar off Frenchman Street, the kind with sticky floors and neon signs. "I thought I was going crazy," he said, staring into his beer. "Every night I'd wait for that tap, like he was testing me. I never went back to that house, not once." I asked if he thought it was the Axeman, like for real. He shrugged, his eyes distant. "Don't know. But I saw that Axeman. It wasn't just sitting there, it was waiting. I didn't push him." The way he said it, quiet and heavy, made me believe. It didn't stop right away. August dragged on, hotter and meaner, and the weirdness kept creeping. One night, Charlie caught a glimpse outside, a shadow moving fast, too tall to be a neighbor. Another time, Lena found her book open to the Axeman chapter, though she swore she'd left it closed. Charlie started carrying the pocket knife everywhere, even to bed. He'd play the sax when the house felt wrong, old jazz tunes his grandpa taught him, Basin Street blues, When the Saints. It seemed to help, like the music pushed something back. Lena made him promise not to tell their mom. She was stressed enough, working doubles to keep them fed. But they both felt it, the house wasn't theirs anymore. By September, things tapered off. School started, routine took over, and the tapping didn't come back. They moved the next summer. New place in Gentilly, smaller but brighter, no cold spots or rusty smells. Lena's a nurse now, got a husband and a baby girl, and she doesn't talk about that year unless you pry. Charlie's married too, runs his own garage, keeps his life simple. But he's got a radio by his bed, always tuned to WWZ, jazz humming through the night. Keeps the air right, he says, not quite joking. He taught himself more sax tunes, plays them on his porch sometimes, says it's for his grandpa. I think it's for something else. I've been to New Orleans a few times since, and I stick to the quarter. Bright lights, drunk tourists, no shadows with axes. But when I pass those old cottages, their shutters creaking, I think of Charlie's story. He showed me a photo once from right after that summer. Him and Lena on the porch, smiling, but their eyes are tired, like they've seen something they can't unsee. I don't know what was out there, a ghost, a trick of the mind, or some creep who knew the legend and played along. All I know is when I'm in NOLA, I keep my windows shut, and I make damn sure there's a trumpet playing somewhere close.